So, hello, everyone, and welcome. Tonight, we are going to focus on wellness at Stevenson High School, and I am the wellness coordinator. My name is Alex Stoller. This is my second year in the role, and part of my responsibility is to help facilitate the integration of wellness curriculum into all of the curricular divisions at Stevenson High School and to collaborate with the student activities department to create opportunities for more students to engage in wellness behaviors. And I'm joined by Eileen, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Alex. My name is Eileen Aragonis, and I'm the manager of the Stevenson College and One Family programs for the Stevenson Foundation. And so part of my focus on wellness is for the One Family program. We have the Jalen Brunson Patriot Wellness Initiative, which is about to kick off our second year, focusing on how to support some of our students that receive financial assistance and supports at Stevenson to ensure they also are able to access and fully engage in so many of our wellness opportunities provided both in the Patriot Wellness Center as well as to our broader population throughout the building. And so I'm so excited to join Alex tonight in terms of his sharing and presenting of how we can really empower our young people and our community as a whole to really practice wellness more consistently day to day. So I'll turn it back to Alex.
So throughout the presentation, I'll switch between presentation mode so you can see some information on the screen, as well as just showing you my face as we talk through exactly what it is that Stevenson does with wellness. And as Eileen mentioned, the intent is to make this information actionable so that we can further engage not just our students, but the broader Stevenson community in how to practice wellness more consistently. It is core to our beliefs that when we align our practices to wellness, it has the best result and outcome for the student. And so that's really the motivating driving force behind why we've engaged so deeply in the wellness initiative, which will be the focus of our conversation today. So as mentioned, I am going to pop up a presentation here, and I'll be occasionally dialing back so you can see my face and we can have more of a chat. And this opening slide really engages us in what the history of wellness has been at Stevenson High School. It's important for us to ground in the fact that wellness isn't new for Stevenson as a consideration, and it's been something that we've been deliberately planning for and making intentional decisions toward for truly over a decade. When we added social and emotional learning as a goal, a project, an initiative for the Stevenson community to consider, we planted a stake in the ground in terms of our focus and what we know to be scientifically the best thing for students' well-being and their outcomes. And ever since then, we've been making more incremental decisions that align to that initial statement. And when we decided to go with a later start so that students can prioritize restoration more effectively, moving finals before break to reduce the stressors that come along with finals time, creating a choice PE, mindful menu options where nutrition became a center stage of what it is that we offer at Stevenson for students to thrive, and a social emotional learning coordinator. As time progressed, the portrait of a graduate was added to the vision statement. And that was a really profound moment in Stevenson's history because it focused the intention of all of the work we do as educators on facilitating the overall well-being of students. This was a whole student approach now to education, where Stevenson continues to innovate and iterate on how best to meet those standards. And so today we still use the portrait of a graduate as a key focal point of our wellness initiative. And around not too long after that, the Patriot Wellness Center planning and design phases began. And with that, we introduced the concept that wellness can be experienced spatially, that having community-oriented facilities for the student body specifically to gather with their peers and practice wellness behaviors in real life began to come to fruition. And it was around that time as well that I started as a wellness consultant, and equity, diversity, and inclusivity director was hired. Not long after, I was brought on full time as a wellness coordinator, and a wellness project, in addition to an LCL project, was officially added to our goals, projects, and initiatives to coincide with the opening up of that student space, the Patriot Wellness Center. And so since then, we've been making incredible strides to integrate more wellness behavior into the curriculums we teach, and most importantly, welcoming all students to enter a space physically and mentally where they feel that they can progress their own wellness with our guidance. And that by doing so, they'll begin to contribute more to how they perform and thrive while at Stevenson High School. This is a visual of the portrait of a graduate, which I mentioned. And I really want to hone in on that first chapter of self today, because it's through wellness, we believe, and practicing the wellness behaviors that we'll discuss here today, students can best meet not just their responsibilities, but their desires in terms of how they show up for others and their ability to perform in learning spaces. And so it was very intentional that in the portrait of a graduate, what students commit to, self becomes first. It's because when we do so, again, we're able to show up as our best selves for and around others, and we can approach the learning environment more confidently and more effectively. And so what does the commitments to self look like? They're outlined here: pursuing a balanced high school experience, fostering responsible, healthy, and ethical decision-making skills, develop a sense of resilience and self-awareness, and demonstrate self-empowered and life-ready skills. All of that is essentially the foundation for the other aspects of focus within wellness, such as social and emotional learning, equity, diversity, and inclusivity, as well as the academic spaces that our students inhabit. The Wellness Initiative really brings this aspect of self to life. And we do so through what we call the pillars of wellness. Our pitch for why it's important to engage in the pillars of wellness is that when we do so, it enables us to reach our full potential. And yes, that ties back to what I was just saying about us following the best of our ability to show up as our best self around and for others, as well as to show up in academic spaces successfully. Practicing these pillars enables you to reach the full potential in all aspects of life, all aspects of what your students really care about, both academically and socially. And so we can leverage the simplicity of a framework like the pillars of wellness to systematically integrate these wellness behaviors across departments at Stevenson High School. So what these pillars do are give us the language to be able to best support our students. That's the entire intention of incorporating the pillars of wellness into the wellness initiative and those goals, projects, and initiatives. So what are the pillars of wellness? What are the tools and the language we're using to communicate the importance of wellness behaviors to students and to support them in acting in alignment with those behaviors, all in service of them thriving academically and socially? So what that looks like are these 4 core pillars: mindset, movement, nutrition, and restoration. Those 4 pillars we define through 4 core themes for each pillar. For mindset, it's the wellness process, our beliefs, our ability to create balance and foster a sense of resilience. For movement, it's the foundations of moving throughout the day in transition, getting from point A to point B, how we can physically train our bodies to perform well and stay injury-free, how we can utilize movement through a lifetime to promote physical and mental health, and how we can, again, leverage transition from point A to point B to integrate movement into our lives in a way that helps us create a sense of vitality. Nutrition, we focus on hydration. And within this pillar specifically, we really hone in on what it is physiologically, physically, and mentally our students need to thrive. And so before proceeding with really describing what the 4 themes in the pillar of nutrition are, I want to pause and just take a moment to look broadly at these 4 pillars and really, what is their root? What are they rooted in? And it is an teenager's biology. What we're looking at is how can we support the development of teenagers, their brains and their bodies. What do they need to thrive at a base level? And then we build from there, right, to improve performance in any aspect that a student's interested in. And so nutrition is a great example of how we do this. Hydration is a biological imperative. We need it for brain function. We need it for metabolism. We look at eating patterns and what are the things that influence a student's eating patterns, including the home environment, cultural preferences and celebrations, social aspects of eating, and how they frame food in terms of their interactions with family and friends. Source, which digs into the foods that students can focus on that are provided at Stevenson High School that will help them thrive if interested, and how to approach structuring meals, structuring snacks, and setting up a day of eating for success. And finally, and certainly not least, because truly restoration is so foundational to our performance in all other areas of wellness and in life. And so even for us adults, it's often a great reminder that when we can feel restored or energized, then we can show up as our best selves around and for others. And we can have a more steady sense of self-confidence and self-assuredness. And we can physically and mentally perform better. So when we are well slept, we're more mentally acute. Our focus improves. Learning and memory improve. We integrate memory from everything we learned that day during sleep. And so really from a performance standpoint and an overall well-being and vitality standpoint, restoration is so fundamental. And so what that looks like is sleep, physical restoration, mental restoration, and social restoration. And so as we proceed through this presentation here, keep in mind, these are the pillars that we're utilizing as a framework or a toolkit to be able to support students in their wellness knowledge and in their ability to engage in wellness behaviors so that they can approach academic and social spaces from a place where they're thriving. And we really get down to that at a biological level. Now, I've used the word wellness a lot. And actually, before focusing in on that, I'm going to just show you our faces here so we can have a conversation, and then I'll switch back to that definition. Wellness has been a word that's been tossed around commonly in media for a long time. And often when words are used so often in so many different contexts, and sometimes the use of the word conflicts with another use of the word, it starts to either lose its meaning or become very difficult to define. And so what we do at Stevenson is create a clear definition of what wellness actually means for students and for our educators so that we have a target and therefore we know what we're aiming for when trying to integrate these pillars of wellness. When it comes to you as guardians of young people, of high school students, it's also great for you to be equipped with an accurate definition of wellness so that as I proceed through this presentation and you gather takeaways, actionable takeaways of how you can apply this information to support your student, you know what collectively as a community we're aiming for. So having a clearly defined target will help any strategies we can provide you that will help support your students' wellness at home and as well support their wellness journey while they're at school. And so I'll show you that definition now. And here it is. Wellness is an individualized process of identifying and practicing the skills that facilitate physiological and mental health and reduce barriers to performance in all areas of life. These words that are in gold are highlighted purposefully. An individualized process. Wellness is a process of learning, planning, and acting. We learn wellness through doing. Sometimes when we try to apply something that we learn, we make mistakes. Sometimes teenagers can perceive mistakes as failure. What we try to do with the pillars of wellness is reframe mistakes or failure as opportunities for learning and improving. That's what the process really encapsulates. Now, of identifying and practicing the skills, this next highlighted word, wellness can be achieved by practicing a set of skills or behaviors that are lived out in action in everyday life. Now, the next part of this definition, that facilitate physiological and mental health. Health is correlated to performance in every aspect. Consider a time when you are lacking health or unhealthy. It's very difficult to not just focus, but to perform well in anything that you want to do well at, right? And reduce barriers to performance in all areas of life. The intention behind practicing wellness is to open the door to students being able to thrive daily and perform well in the areas of life they care about most. And so this sentence contains a lot, but encapsulates everything we mean when we discuss wellness here. So we can use this working definition going forward. And please, as an adult human with a student to look after, adopt this definition for yourself. It's a lovely way to approach integrating wellness behaviors that into our own lives that help us thrive. And I do want to mention here that, and I'll come back to this when we talk about the best ways to support your student. Really, if we're coming from a place where we're thriving as adult human beings, we can best support our students. So everything we teach in the pillars of wellness are life skills, coming back to that portrait of a graduate. These are life skills where even in adulthood, we can leverage them and consider them in our ability to show up as our best self for and around others, including those who we care about most. So now I'm going to really transition into the life of a Stevenson student. And I know this is kind of a sad picture. She doesn't look very happy. Nevertheless, it's common that in a typical day, if wellness behaviors aren't considered, the emotions captured in this image, which can be jarring, are likely possible and common with students at Stevenson High School. And so we aim to address that very proactively. And this is common in teenagers in general, who have competing priorities between their social life and academic ambitions or co-curricular ambitions, and as well as anything that takes place at home and with their friends or families. So it's common to the teenage adolescent condition to experience these emotions, and it's a necessary part of their growth. Absolutely. Nevertheless, we can proactively engage in that inevitability and give students the tools to be able to navigate scenarios and situations where they may be experiencing what this young person is experiencing here in this image. And often behaviors that can lead to this emotional spectrum and experiential spectrum would be something like this. They wake up rushed, don't eat, run out the door. They appear in class, and biologically, if they're underslept and undernourished, they will have increased hormones and chemicals that make them feel stressed out and make it difficult to focus. By noon, if this is the first real food they're consuming, and now their tiredness, if you will, or under restoration has compounded, it's going to add to their afternoon, feeling probably lethargic and perhaps stressed. After school, it can feel like things are piling up and they may be overwhelmed, or feeling unconfident to enter a space with other students where they're feeling welcomed and like they belong. And so all of those factors make those feelings more difficult to manage. And by 9 p.m. perhaps or later, they're hopefully wrapping up schoolwork, and yet without a deliberate plan, set themselves up to repeat the same patterns, which would be staying up late, sometimes on electronic devices, and engaging in any related behavior, which repeats the cycle, right? So then you again wake up tired and rushed, And as these days compound, the biological side effects get more pronounced. And then therefore the student's experience doesn't get better, right? It continues down that same path. And so we can intervene with these patterns. And that's what we aim to do at Stevenson. And then we'll give you some tools to support students at home with this. And this could be the result of that, right? It could be students who run through the halls thriving, right? And we see a lot of this as well. And this is also very common in the adolescent experience, the teenage experience. There's a vigor, an enthusiasm for life, for the day, an enthusiasm for being in a place with their friends where they feel like they thrive and they have confidence approaching spaces with their peers and academically, and they feel like they belong here to be feeling that way. And these wellness behaviors absolutely support that. It absolutely supports the student having that type of social, emotional, and academic experience. And it supports their performance in all the things that they aspire to do well at. And what that might look like, in opposition to the previous example, is that students wake up off a nice night of sleep feeling refreshed and eat something that provides fuel. And they also intake fluid, which is required biologically for optimal function. So they hydrate. And they continue to hydrate throughout the day. In class, they will feel, due to the state of restoration in the brain and physiologically elsewhere in the body, for hormone and chemical cascade that supports balance and focus. By lunchtime, having been restored from a good night's sleep and having nourished early, that primes students to make better decisions. So how we sleep, how we eat, how we move, all influence decision making directly. If we're underslept, there's hormones and chemicals that circulate that make smart food choices more difficult. There's plenty of research to support that. So mindful menu options, which is the food options at Stevenson High School that they've invested a lot of time and energy into providing, that support students' well-being with nourishing food and include foods that we encourage students to eat more of when we're educating them about nutrition. Those are available daily for breakfast and for lunch at Stevenson. We also have smart snack options, which are available throughout the building. And having fueled now properly, and again, still feeling more restored as a pattern, in afternoon classes, students are still focused and ready for a transition into co-curriculars and after school activities where they have more confidence, more of a sense of belonging, and at a minimum aren't exacerbating any feelings otherwise, which can promote sociability and also make them more comfortable in these after school spaces. And then by 9, or maybe it's a little later than that, often students are thinking about the next day, right? They've completed their work. They've had a day where they felt like they thrived, and it might not be consciously that they're really like, that was a thriving day, right? But they're contented. And by that point, their brain goes to thinking about the next day. And that's the root of that is their enthusiasm for life. It's their expectation that the next day might be the same. And it could be subconscious, but nevertheless, every day influences the next. And so they go to bed more encouraged with a plan for how they can get great sleep and repeat these patterns and cycles. And so just to juxtapose those two examples, you might have a student that does some of these. You might have a student that does all of these. You might have a student that does none of these. And so a really important component of this is that we always start with where students are at currently. And we don't overwhelm them with, you must get great sleep, eat nutritious, move your body, have a right mindset. We help them adopt these different concepts or behaviors slowly, systematically, and one at a time. So we always meet the students where they are and try to help them improve over time to align more of their behaviors, again, slowly and systematically, to these pillars of wellness. And we support you in supporting them the same way. The expectation isn't that we're going to leave this today and then go tell our teenagers that they need to put their phone away at 10 p.m. and go to sleep right now, so that they can wake up feeling restored. That's certainly one way you can approach that. Yet just what we know about health behavior change is that it happens slowly over time. And it takes time, as well as patience and deliberation. And so what that actually might look like for you, and hopefully this is helpful, and by all means, Stevenson is a resource for how to support your student in alignment with what we do there every day. But the number one thing we can do is model this behavior. And this is something that all of our educators really focus on at school is, are we practicing what we preach with regard to these different behaviors while we're teaching them? And truly, our teenagers absolutely absorb more from what we do than what we say. And I heard a great quote about this the other day. It was, rather than thinking of ourselves as adult guides, as engineers of students and their experiences, we're more like shepherds. We more so kind of show them the pastures to graze on, and it's up to them to really take that route and assimilate that into their experience and behaviors. And so with that, we can take more of a modeling approach, seeing that they'll learn as much from our actions, if not more, than they will from our words. And so what can we do in addition to modeling these behaviors for our students, right? So us, being mindful of having a bedtime and things like that would be in the nutrition category. These are 3 points in each of these pillars that we can do to support our students. So nutrition provides simple protein-filled breakfasts that students can grab and go and eat out the door. That might look like a Greek yogurt parfait, or a breakfast burrito, or some beans and rice that can be eaten with a spoon as long as the student's not driving. Anything else that is common to your preferences, traditions, culture, that has some protein in it and is easy for the student to eat. Encourage the mindful menu options for lunch. These are great options where we have a lot of different types of meals, and we let students explore different cuisines from around the world as well in these menu options. That's a great go-to lunch for students. And then provide a nutritious dinner. So what that will probably look like is something prepared at home in some way, shape, or form, if possible, of course. And from a restoration perspective, these are 3 things you can do to support your student. Encourage self-regulation. So instead of imposing strict rules on how they use technology at night, for example, guide them to set their own limits. I think the best thing we can do is, again, show them the information we know. Teenagers are able to comprehend the impact of blue light, for example, on how that affects sleep. It suppresses melatonin production, which is the hormone that makes us feel sleepy. And so we can kind of explain that to them. And I've seen students say, oh, yeah, I know I need to get off my phone at night. Like, they're aware of a lot of this stuff. So just encourage them to set their own limits. And a great thing you might do is say, ask them how that's going. Like, if they do decide to set their own limits, be like, if they were fully slept that night, ask them how it impacted their day. And then if they weren't fully restored that day, similarly, ask them how that impacted their day. So looking at this functionally, in terms of getting adequate restoration, is a good way to go. Acknowledge their autonomy. So these are young people becoming young adults, and we want to make them feel empowered in their choices. And that's really what these pillars are. They're choices that we make, decisions we make, and behaviors and actions we take as a result of those choices. Acknowledge their autonomy that and encourage them to make great choices. Emphasize the importance of sleep for cognitive function, memory, retention, and academic performance. A good night's sleep can be a competitive advantage during exams and assignments. Really straightforward here. More sleep, better performance. And you can just support them in that by letting them know that that's what, the science says. And this is maybe an opportunity for self-reflection. If we're more so encouraging, like, stay up late working, that goes against what the science says for performance. So we want to be aligned to that and more so send a message of, if you want to perform really well on your exam tomorrow, we really want to prioritize a great night's sleep. And finally, movement. So encourage students to take walking breaks and split up work sessions by moving around. This can also help with like performance while studying, is not just sitting sedentarily for hours at a time, but getting up every 25 minutes or 30 minutes for a 5-minute walk around, get some blood flowing, take a brain break. Support students' decision to participate in movement-based co-curriculars, which there are many. This is a great way for students to blow off steam. One of the great things about the Patriot Wellness Center is that it's an amazing space for students to come and release stress through physical activity. And we see all varieties of student. As diverse as the school is, we see that represented fully in the Patriot Wellness Center. And so encourage participation in that. If you are noticing that your student seems stressed or overwhelmed, encourage physical activity with friends or even by themselves, even if it's just a walk. And Stevenson provides lots of co-curricular and after-school opportunities and spaces to do that, which really helps students de-stress and create a sense of vitality for themselves. And finally, again, coming back full circle to how we can model this behavior, is participate in movement-based activities with your students. So go for a walk with them, or play a little sport with them, or do anything adventurous that you enjoy. One thing that I think is also good for us to keep in mind as adults is trying something our students enjoys. Maybe we're not the biggest fan of horseback riding, but our student really loves it. It goes a long way to show how much we care about them when we engage in things that they really care about. And I feel that movement-based activities are really great ways to do that together and as a community. So this slide brings us into kind of the final segment here of our discussion tonight. And it's just an example to show that each student has their own path. Each individual student is unique in how they approach their wellness. And that's at the root of everything we do at Stevenson, in helping them and supporting them in meeting their own needs. And us as adults playing our part and our role to meet those needs. And we follow this path of learning and the process and planning and seeing our students apply these practices in daily life. And we're really on that path and that journey with them. And that's in essence how we approach any curriculum design that comes along with the pillars of wellness and how those are lived out. And we encourage that for you as well, as an adult responsible for or at least part of and influential in students' well-being and supporting them in that. Be on that path with them together. And they are unique individuals, even though they might sometimes come from us, right? And embrace their unique path, as we all have a unique path when it comes to applying these wellness behaviors. And so I hope that this session provided some clarity into what we do here at Stevenson High School. We really support all of the educators in the building with the tools they need to be able to educate students about this information. And so that's where their competence comes in. And then really what's behind all this is our ability to practice this consistently. And as I started the presentation with, wellness is not new to Stevenson. It's something we've been consistently focused on for well over a decade now, and probably decades in different ways. And so we intend to continue to consistently engage in making wellness part of the Stevenson experience. And truly the outcome of that being that wellness is integrated as a key component of the SHS community. And so we will continue to support you in supporting students, and we will continue to support your students in wellness, and create an environment or a climate and culture where students can really thrive. Ultimately, at the end of the day, hopefully this makes our students more resilient and thriving human beings. That's really the intention. So we really appreciate you all for joining. Before wrapping up, I'll see if Eileen would like to add. And again, appreciate you for joining today. And then for those of you who are watching this, thank you and take care.
Thank you again, Alex, for running through all of these opportunities for especially our families to engage more and support their young people with their consistent wellness practices, building of habits and whatnot. And again, I really appreciate, Alex, you reiterating that wellness is an individualized process. It's not just a simple checklist of one and done. It's going to look different and individualized for every student, for every family, recognizing that needs or what a potential goal might look like will be different for every student and family. And I also just want to reiterate the want and the intent for the growing of wellness as a whole at Stevenson is really to empower our students and young people, and recognizing they are more than human they're not human doing they're human beings, not human doings. And so I think, again, that's really where we recognize it's not just about the time in the classroom. It is about who the student is growing and developing to be outside the classroom. And so I really appreciate, Alex, you helping to redefine this idea of wellness for our audience tonight.
Thank you.
I'll pause. I don't know. Again, we're very appreciative of those of you that joined us this evening, but also just want to pause in case there are any questions that you might want to put in the chat. Otherwise, I think we will be logging off in the next few minutes, just in case, just giving some time if there are any questions. Okay, again, the recording should be available on the Stevenson Family Engagement YouTube playlist probably in the coming days. And the slides will also be available on the website probably also in the coming days. So thank you again for joining us. Hope everyone has a lovely evening and good night.